Today I'm gonna review The Great Heartland Holding and Co. by Jason Kotarski. It's a game for 2 to 4 players, plays in about 30 minutes to 45. It's a cubes and cards game, but actually feels more like a board game because the cards are laid down to form a board. It's about trucks traveling the land, loading and unloading goods, and you're trying to make the most money in the shortest possible time. So let's see a little bit how the game works. So this is how the board for a 2-player game looks like in the beginning. And in your turn, you will do 2 things. Move, you are almost on the move, always on the move, and one action, take one action. So when you move, you can either pay for the movement with a combination of movement cards. You have 1, 2, and 3 cards, or you can discard a combination of them to go to 3, and 2, and 1. Or pay a number of dollars on your track here equal to the number of spaces you want to move. So let's say I am the blue player, I discard number 1 card, and you always have 5 cards in your hand, and I will move 1. Then you can either discard cards from your hand and draw back, but what you usually want to do is to discard cards to load stuff. So you can either load or unload goods with your actions. So in this case, let's say I went here, I have to load green goods because only green goods are there. So I can discard 2 of these to get 2 of these onto my track. And I am now proud carrier of beans or green beans. Later on, I will want to move to anywhere where they buy my beans. I cannot stay in the same spot, so you have to move around. And let's see, I arrive at Cameron, and I can use 2 more cards to unload this here and get twice 3 money. It's here on the card. You can see this is a 4 and a 4. It's a 3. So I would gain 6 and go to $11. You are racing to get to a certain number of dollars, 30, 40, or 50, depending on the number of players. Whoever gets that first wins. So while we keep going, moving and selling stuff around the board, getting new stuff will be harder, because when you pick up stuff from the production space, these big symbols on the upper part of the card, it costs, as I said, 1 card per good that you want to load on your track. But later on, let's say you want to get these black cubes to sell them somewhere else. Since this is not a producer of meat, the black cubes, you will have to discard 2 cards per each good that you want to load on your track. You have a maximum of 8 goods on your cards. You move around, sell the stuff. At the end of your turn, you replenish your hand in a Ticket to Ride style. Basically, you can either draw from the deck or pick one from the display, and you refill your hand up to 5 cards. And you can either get movement cards or more good cards. So you keep doing this, and the game is interesting, offers some little decision, but in the base game that is this is not that stimulating, in my opinion. Where it gets more interesting is when you start adding the flip side of some of the cards, that you will see it's exactly the same, but for these teeny tiny symbols on certain sides of it. These 2 were not on the other side of the card, as you can see. Fort Leeds, same production, same prices, but not these 2 symbols. These 2 this means you cannot pass there, and this means every time you cross that line, you will pay money. And this makes for a far more interesting game in which you are dealing with limitation, because if you're here, now you need 3 movements to go to Fort Lee, because this road is blocked. And there are 3 different effects, and they combine to create a more dynamic map. And what is even more interesting is that as soon as you know the game, later on they say, but you really want to do it as soon as possible, from your second game on, you can use different setups like this. I think it's 1, which make for a far more interesting game, because now if you get a corn here and you want to sell it there, you will have to take a very long trip. So it may be rewarding, but you have to plan for it. There are also special power cards that you can add. I am less enthusiastic about this. You basically place additional location on certain sides of the board, and when you stop there, all you can do is pay the money to get the superpower, and they do different things. I don't think they are particularly interesting. Finally, an expansion exists to play with 5 players. It comes with a very nice light purple track that I think is very interesting, and comes with 2 additional cards, Badlands, which produce nothing, that make for an even more interesting board. The game has no fixed number of turns. Whoever gets to $30 in a 4-player games or more in a less players game wins. Okay, so this in short is the game. So what do I think of such a game? First of all, compared to its dimension, both in terms of packaging, cost, and footprint on the table, the game delivers big. But I don't think that's a good criterion to determine whether a game is good or not, because being a small game is not an excuse to not being a good game. But this is a good game. So the team doesn't particularly involve me. Not only it's a cube game, and the trucks delivering stuff are not my idea of great fun, but even in the traveling there is something very dry, very mechanical, and right to the bone. The way you cannot load where you unload, it's thematically weird, and this was my biggest problem with the game. This said, the game mechanics are very interesting, especially when you start playing with the advanced rules, which I would suggest everyone to play with. I would never play it again without the advanced rules. The blocked routes, the routes that cost more, allow you to make the game what it's supposed to be. That is a board game with a spatial reasoning in it, and this is also true of the alternative setups. When you start your turn, it's easy enough to decide what to do that you don't get stuck by analysis paralysis and you don't slow down the game for everyone else. But at the same time, it offers a decent array of choices. The choices are always the same: where to load, where to unload, and whether to pay to move or to use cards. But the way you have to carry that out is particularly interesting, because you would love to always sell wherever it's the most remunerative, but you cannot always do that. Sometimes you have to make do with what you're given. Also, the other players can really ruin your day, because you can never buy or unload stuff where another truck is present, so you have to make do with that. There are some special powers that you can acquire for the trucks. I am not positive those are balanced, and getting to one of those first could prove to be a very big advantage. And I didn't particularly care for them in general. But I like the game. It uses a mechanic, choosing the card, that is not new but that I like. You choose cards from an array instead of just drawing from the deck, and that makes for an interesting choice. The game is definitely nice, innovative, it's fast, it stays true to the 30 to 45 minutes even at your first play. And if you are interested in a very simple, not particularly thrilling team, but very solid game, check out the Great Heartland All-In Company. Bye!